Good evening. This is Prakash, founder and CEO of Sea Change Consulting. Of course, I carry the tag names of corporate sage, change maker, several things. Have about close to 4 decades of leadership experience in turning around businesses, helping businesses grow and reach their full potential. This new fortnightly initiative from the House of Sea Change Consulting, Chennai, India, is to help CEOs, leaders, big businesses, mid-cap companies, MSMEs, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs to learn some of the best practices and see how they can bring the best of the practices without having to really worry about whether the insights would be successful or not. You can be rest assured that more or less, it is almost assured that these things that we are going to bring to you would work for sure. With that small note, let me jump into the topic that I have taken for the first day. Succeed like Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. Why have I chosen this topic? What does it really mean to you? Prior to this, let me share a very unique and interesting concept which forms the basis of the entire series that I'm going to bring to you over a period of time. CCI, copy, customize, and innovate. As you might be knowing, it's more than 10-20,000 years since the wheel was first invented, which had a huge impact on how humans lived, right up to how they even looked at agriculture. Even today in normal corporate boardroom conversations, you'll find this term, let's not reinvent the wheel. It necessarily doesn't stand for people wanting to kill creativity. What it really means is where we can just do with a little bit of improvisation. You don't need to reinvest the time in finding what the wheel is and go through the entire process. Many corporates don't have that kind of a window, not the time, nor the money, nor the manpower, nor the brains, intelligence at their disposal. Hence, it makes tremendous sense if you are ready to set aside your ego that you need to do everything on your own and instead rely on, subject to, of course, copyright and other rights that you have to respect. Let me share a bit on a couple of examples on what this really means, CCI or copy, customize, and innovate. The moment you speak about automobiles, you think of Ford, the assembly line concept that the senior Ford brought and popularized the concept of automobile manufacturing. But if you really look at who maximized the benefit of doing this process, it's not actually Ford. As I'm speaking, it's in one way unfortunate that they have actually folded shop in India. At least the announcements have been made. It is Toyota which actually captured on the concept and really brought about very big changes in the way in which automobiles were being made and manufactured and marketed world over, which even coined the term the Toyota way. You don't have the Ford way. If you look at who founded electricity and brought light bulbs into the tungsten filament first to start with, it was none other than Edison himself, GE Lighting. But who is the number one today in the world market, if you really look, is Philips. They took a concept which actually was invented and pioneered by GE Lighting, and they have really taken it to a different height altogether. You take the concept of Samsung's Galaxy Tab today. In terms of market size, they have overtaken what iPad did, though iPad brought about all the initial innovations. If I talk about search engines, the first name that would come to your mind obviously would be the search giant, Google. But if you really look at it, who is the one who made all these changes? Who brought about the initial revolution in terms of doing the search engine? It was Yahoo. Of course, once Yahoo was up for sale and Google wanted to buy is one of the stories that go, but Google came about and did a radical change on how the concept of search engines would work once and for all. They have a huge, unimaginable market share today when it comes to search engines. If I talk about social space for chatting with your friends, the instant name that would come in your mind would be Facebook. But the people who actually pioneered the concept was MySpace. Facebook overtook them. They took the concept, they customized, they innovated, copying within what you would call as allowable limits. The last example, before I jump into the main theme, I'm just setting the base. Who flew first? All of us know instantly it would be Wright brothers. But having now known that it was Wright brothers who brought flying into the realms of reality, who should have actually made big strides in that? It was not the company that Wright brothers found, but it is Boeing. Even today, worldwide, you think of flight, you think of Boeing. Maybe an Airbus and other companies come second and third, but it is more or less by default to Boeing. What did they do? They took the concept of flights, customized, and they continue to innovate. Of course, customizing and innovating is a continuous part. Copying may be one time. Hence, in this theme, what I'm going to dive deeper is doing the copy, customize, innovate from the three giants of organizations. Everyone would like to ape and find what are the success stories that they have. How do they actually learn from them? How do we copy the best practices that they have? If you are able to learn from some of the work that they have done, the three companies, though there are several, I'm taking three of them into discussion today: Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. If you really look at what they really brought to the table, they themselves in many ways were partly CCI. They were doing copy, customize, and innovate. But they did it so well that they became pioneers. I've been tracking companies like this for quite a long time. When I started doing research on what takes for companies to stay stable and grow, even when things become hard, something like the recession of 2008. I coined the term at the time called recessionomics. I started studying companies which have sustained not just one recession, but multiple recessions and economic challenges, industrial challenges. And I wrote a book around that called Future Proof Your Business, which became a bestseller in that category in the year 2016. What I found is that there is a lot that we can learn by just looking around. All it needs is alertness, ready to know what would work. Take it. Check for copyright infringements. If there are none, predominantly in business concepts, you don't have them. Maybe when it comes to product patents, yes. Customize them, innovate, go ahead and give that huge boost to your company. If there is the first takeaway that you have today here to start with, even before I jump into the success secrets behind these three giants, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, that is that starting today, ensure you have a separate department called CCI. Their fundamental role, one or two people or whatever it takes, depending upon who you are, what your organization is. how you perceive this function. They would be doing all that is needed for them to copy the business concepts, service concepts, distribution concepts, client service concepts, whatever it may be. Customize it to your environment and innovate. In Sea Change, we help many of our clients to learn from such biggies from any field. I have chosen 3 of them, which are predominantly technology oriented because they seem to have some kind of a web around us, because we use their services almost every day, in and out. And hence, when I speak about these names, automatically touches a chord in each and every one of us. Let me move to one of the best, or rather most admired CEOs of the last 20, 30 years in this world. Instantly, one of the top names that would come in anybody's head across the globe, not just in one specific country, would be Steve Jobs. Considered a maverick, a person with a great sense of knowing what to do and when to do. He brought up Apple from several downfalls by sheer leadership and management skills. Of course, his knowledge of product and how he looked at growing Apple based on the technology foundation is a different story altogether. There are several things that one can learn from the success of what Apple has done. Based on my reading and research, I have picked up the top 5, which I would share with you. Then go on to top 5 of the other 2 organizations. And towards the end, I'll give you my CCI of the top 5 qualities of these organizations to you, so that you can go ahead and straight away implement them in your organization. If you are a consultant, it becomes literally a reference manual for you to go ahead and start doing it from your customers. We do it all the time. We know it works. You might just have to customize it a bit. Do not copy and straight away use. Customize it a bit. Innovate and ensure that you get the best for yourself and for your clients if you are a consultant. Let's look at the first point, not necessarily in the same sequence, but I'm giving the top 5 pickings that I have from Apple. One thing that I have observed is their obsession over the details in whatever they do. Point number 1, obsession over the details. Attention to details, which is what separated Apple from its rivals. I remember reading a book or an article 10, 15 years ago, where in one of the product meetings, apparently Steve Jobs had told the team that more than the user experience, in his view, in his perspective, what he found was the boot time of a laptop. Those days, those who have used laptops 10, 15, 20 years ago know that sometimes it can be painfully slow. I have been a laptop user for a very, very long time, maybe more than 20, 25 years. Sometimes you can just turn it on and go have a bath, have breakfast, come back, maybe it will be ready. He redesigned the entire concept. He said max 5 seconds. The screen should be on and the system should be functional. His team kept on saying that it's not possible, but he kept pushing. So much of detailing he went through to ensure some of the concepts which have caught on to the other classes of laptop PCs today were done by Apple 10, 15 years ago. So much of detailing was done that the user experience that he wanted to give, right from the time the product was developed, manufactured, dispatched, and made available. It used to be like a movie theater when any product of Apple was announced, that people used to stand in queue from the previous day in the Apple stores. That was the power of detailing that he brought as a culture, which even today stays. As I'm speaking, the next version of the iPhone has been announced to be launched in the next few days' time. I also look forward to the kind of detailing that they do there, which is what really differentiates them in a very big way when it comes to the user experience. Every minute detail is given complete attention to. It's like when you paint your house, when you look to the top side of the corner of the wall, maybe there'll be a small dot that you will think it's okay, why bother? But if Apple was painting the house, that dot would be as clean, as perfect as a dot which is just close to your eyes on the wall where you are sitting. Point number two, Apple made it a point that they'll stay focused on what they are good at and not invest time and energy and anything else. They used to apparently take pot shots at the other company, which was very well known for some of the leading services that they offer, Google. But if you really look at Google, if they touch about 20 services, it's only one or two in which they succeed. Whether it is Orkut or take any of the social media work or other handles that they have done. There are only few services like the search, like the maps, like the YouTube, a few things that they have been really solid, but there are many that they did where they failed very badly. This is one thing apparently Steve Jobs and his team used to take pot shots and keep telling people, stay focused on one thing. Apparently they used to make fun saying that if Google had just stuck to one or two, they might have become much, much bigger than what they have become today. After all, Apple apparently was the first company in the world to break the $2 trillion market capitalization. And if you really look at what they make, maybe the one and only thing that will come into your mind is maybe a phone and the series of laptops that they do, the power books, air books, and stuff like that. With just these two products, which literally you can live without. They have brought out a company with a market capitalization of, imagine, $2 trillion. It makes sense. That's why it is said that what you focus expands. There are, of course, false sides to it, but let's see what the good sides are, and that's what I'm presenting. Two of the points are presented from the story of Apple, being obsessed over the details. Point number two, staying focused on what you are good at. Apple also had the leadership culture of having one individual accountable. They had the concept of DRI, or directly responsible individual, for every product or service. Maybe you see one product, but it will have multiple sub-products as part of the, like when you see a house, you will have bricks, you will have mortar, you will have sand, all that comes together as a home. But as far as the work is concerned, internally it will be subdivided, and that's where they made it very clear. Each of the product or service that went out together to make the final product available to the customer, the buck stops with one single person, not with a group. Because the moment you give it to a group, the moment you give it to an external consultant, the moment it becomes like a hot potato nobody wants to own, it just gets deposited somewhere outside in trash. Directly responsible individual is a concept that Apple really pioneered, and they continue to do it today. One individual is completely accountable. Everything begins and ends with him. The final decisions, the profits that have to be made, or the costs that have to be saved, whatever it may be. Success or failure stops with this person. And it seems to have worked miracles for Apple. It continues to work. Some of the people whom I know work in Apple say that it is a little bit of a pressure cooker situation, but they know that they have the freedom to do whatever it takes for them to be successful, to avoid failure. And it all comes down to one single person. Everyone rallies around this person for that specific work or task or the product portion of the product that this person has to do. Point number four that they had, Apple was known for its top class hires, and they wouldn't mind outbidding any employee that they are going after. They'll get the best of the talent. One thing that apparently Steve Jobs had communicated to the HR team and others, do not worry about return on investment. It will take care by itself. A players hire A players, which is famous statement. A players means the best players always hire the best players. And B players, they don't hire B players, they hire actually C players, which means they hire one level, two level lower because they say, okay, it's fine. This is all we can afford. This is all we have. This is all the market can give. Apple never stopped. They were ready to jump or stoop to any level to get the person of their choice if they made up their mind. And if you are on the list, be very sure that the hiring price will never be a barrier for you to enter Apple, which means the rest of the life, they had the best of the talent doing the work which the best people should be doing. This is what they did. This is what some of the successful companies have beautifully adapted. Some of the companies we have consulted with also, we keep telling them, please do not go for B or C level hires just for the sake of short-term compromise. But when you go for A, why A? Even you can even look at A plus. One of the famous statements of Ford in the antitrust suit of the 1930s, he said that my smartness was in hiring people who are far better than me. And that's what he kept doing. Point number 5, Apple always worked in micro teams. They had very small teams, focused teams which would do whatever it takes. They didn't have large teams. Typically, their teams are 5 to 10, max 15, 20 at best, even for large projects. That way, they ensured that the team was very well focused and organized. The larger the team, the multiple the layers the reporting system develops or gets into, you'll be very sure that it doesn't really help you. It's also a way in which they were duplicating startups inside Apple all the time. Every startup normally had only 4, 5, 6 people. And this is what they did all the time. Having many startups, keeping teams small, and ensuring that things became very easy to handle. When there are only about 4 or 5 people to work with, it becomes extremely easy for you to actually take decisions, work with them, and do whatever is essential for you to move faster towards the success goals that you have. Let's move on to one of my favorite companies, Amazon, of Jeff Bezos fame. Who wouldn't want to learn from the success story of Jeff Bezos? Let's look at some of the features, what made what Amazon became famous with. Some of the top learnings that they have. Let me start with how they handle teams. They empowered teams to think big. If you really look at what is popularly known as the Amazon's wheel of products and services, you will find that everything under the sun literally comes. It might run contrary to what Google failed, but Amazon was smart enough. They kept the core of the services at the center. At the outer end, you had a Netflix, you had an Amazon Prime. You had a Barnes and Nobles, you had an Amazon bookstore, which was giving all that service. There's a model even in India, Tatas have copied very beautifully and effectively. The second thing that they did is the famous quote from the habits, the 7 habits of highly effective people, beginning with end in mind. Amazon is very well known for working backwards. They would look at a 6-month, 1-year map or 2-year, 3-year map as to how the organization would have grown into, and work backwards, map out every single detail and ensure that the organization became successful in doing that. Working backwards was a very big strength of Amazon. The point number 3, which is something they would walk to any extent to get done. So much so that literally they are the number 1 in their business for one single reason, which is this point number 3, which is being obsessed with customers. Every one of their mid to top executives, their social handles, everything was open for anyone to come and talk about Amazon, their services, or their products. You bought half a kilo of vegetables and ordered and it didn't get delivered. If you could reach out an Amazon executive in LinkedIn and sort of ping them, be rest assured that action will be taken, and not action in terms of replication, but action in terms of ensuring that the process flaws, if any, were rectified. They were micro listening to customers and market all the time, continuously, being obsessed with customers to such an extent that customer literally becomes the king. They're very bullish on this concept. There are many people, many clients that we know who don't take really customer's voice seriously. At Amazon, the voice of the customer is always on the top of the priority for literally every team member of Amazon. Point number 4 is about how Amazon wanted leaders to work. They wanted Amazon to dive deep. Please bear in mind that people get confused when you speak about dive deep. They think that dive deep means typically micromanage. No, it's not so. Diving deep is when every leader for his team, however big or small, is aware of the complete data points on why things are happening, how things are happening, how to use the data. All the meetings predominantly are data-driven, where the leader is able to dive deep to smell based on the data that he or she sees to take preventive or corrective action on the fly, just like that. Diving deep is a leadership principle. Another leadership principle of Amazon that they openly, vehemently support. Apparently, Jeff Bezos' communication, it says that have a backbone and speak up. It's perfectly all right to disagree. May not be to disrespect, but to disagree is perfectly fine. They have developed an organizational culture to commit to change and carry through the change based on this one single principle. They are out to do what we call as kill the S-men culture. Many of the organizations, you'll find that hardly people down the line who are in the know of things are actually listened to. What does happen is that leaders have a way of doing things. I've known many leaders. I continue to get to interact with many such leaders, unfortunately, who say that I know what I'm doing. Just do what I want you to do and don't have to worry about thinking. Amazon reversed this culture. They literally were paranoid about having people speak up, maintaining the basic etiquette and the decorum. But you will be heard and no punitive action will be taken if you speak up and disagree. This is one culture which helped Amazon to match the earlier principle I shared, to dive deep. People will speak up and tell you on the face, look, this is what it is. As a leader, it's up to you to process what is told to you and not to look at the person and find how you can actually take some kind of an action, which is what bureaucratic organizations do, or organizations with very limited voice of customer on one side is important. Voice of internal customer is equally important for Amazon. Let's look at one of the favorite companies of everyone, long ago, not the most loved company in the world. Yes, I'm speaking about Microsoft. After the ascent of Satya Nadella to the top, he brought about dramatic changes, and some of the changes I'm going to share, the top 5 points, are the points which have been brought in, modified, and used in the time of Satya Nadella since he took over roughly less than a decade ago. Brought about major changes, made Microsoft completely a different entity altogether. The top 5 points that I have picked up, which you can look at doing a CCI inside your own organization or for your customers if you are a management consultant or a leader or a person who helps people be coached, mentored. The first thing is what he did is he made Microsoft move from a rigid and inflexible culture And what he brought about was a growth mindset based on being obsessed with customers and build an inclusive culture. He called it as one Microsoft culture, which allowed people to be inclusive. I am part of Microsoft. I'll be listened to. Let's be obsessed with customers. All inclusive culture. Instead of being rigid and inflexible, the earlier times apparently people are busy pointing fingers at each other. Instead, now the focus was about a growing mindset, inclusive culture, the one Microsoft culture. Predominantly, it means setting the base through the concept of culture for the entire organization. That's what he brought about. The second point, he continues to demonstrate and live by the values that he said the CEO should be the curator and carrier of the organization's culture. I have worked with several organizations. I help them develop cultures, but unfortunately, what happens is the entrepreneur or the person at the helm of the affair tends to say that I am outside the ambit of this. This is for my top level team, mid level team, and lower. But I will have my own way of doing things. It doesn't work. People don't do as you tell them to do. People do as you do. Right from a childhood, we all have the tendency to ape our superiors, parents, teachers, things like that. That's how we have grown, and that's how we work even in office. Hence, having understood that, Satya Nadella apparently brought in the curator and carrier of culture, the 3C, curator, carrier of the culture concept in Microsoft, and he lived by the values. And he continues to live by the values so that when people meet him, they have a pleasant surprise to see that the culture that they are being asked to follow is the same culture that their own CEO follows. That has remarkable impact, leaves a positive imprint in the minds of the people who work for him and work for Microsoft. The third point was that the primary focus of the leaders was to model, coach, and care the team members and create an environment where employees are empowered. Be a model, coach them, care for them, and empower your employees to do their best. If you really look at the 3 points that I've shared till now about Microsoft, it's all about people, and culture, nothing else. I think Nadella made a very big difference from shifting Microsoft from a technology company to literally a people company. It took some time, but it's paying a rich dividend there. Either they've already done it, they're almost there to become a $2 trillion market capitalization company as well, along with Amazon and Apple. The fourth point that he propagated is when it comes to doing things, specifically the decisions that you take on products, on the services, on the technology, whatever it may be, hiring, firing. He introduced earlier during the time of Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates, Microsoft was known to be hire, fire, kind of pink slip kind of a company. He brought in the concept of what we call as think deeply and slowly. Take a pause, think deeply, think slowly. But now having decided, he said, let's move swiftly and quickly and ensure that the decision is put into action. In one style, you can call it as democratic, slow decision making, but military style, power packed, super fast action. Point number 5, the concluding point of my input from Microsoft before I give you the summary of my CCA takeaway for you, and then open up for question answers through the chat box, if any. He found out that Microsoft had the culture of what you call as nerds. Everyone knew answer for everything. Microsoft was being chided openly by everyone in the leadership segment, Wall Street, wherever you take, as the know-it-all company. Yeah, I know. What happened is every product meeting, every team meeting became sort of a fighting match, a boxing match of who is right and who is wrong, instead of doing what is right and what is wrong, which has to be left out. From the culture of know-it-all, he changed the culture to what we call as learn-it-all. which means be ready to accept your follies and mistakes. Set aside your ego. If you don't know, accept that you don't know and see how you can go and learn what you have to learn. To ensure, go back to the first point that I shared, that one Microsoft concept. So if you really look at it, we have shared about 5 points each from these three major giants, corporate giants, which the entire world looks up to, uses the product in and out all the time. Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. What is my CCI for you? Based on my implementation, the implementation of Sea Change's team of 100 plus consultants for the projects we do pan-India, pan-Asia. Of course, going live with the video streams, it becomes easy for you to talk to anyone in the world. The barriers have been broken thanks to pandemic. There are 5 points that I have to share, which you can start using from today. If you need implementation support, of course, people like us are always available. But what are the 5 points? My CCI from the success of these three companies. It became very difficult for me to pack all the success stories of 3 role model companies in one way or another, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, in about half an hour to 40 minutes. It's not easy. But I've given the gist of it for you to dive deeper and expand. Of course, feel free to reach out to me in any of the social handles, and I would be happy to engage and share the information. Now, let's look at the 5 points that I have for you as my CCI to you. The top 5 points that I have picked up based on my study, which we use extensively for many of our clients. Not all 5, one or 2. If they're good enough, if they're ready to use all the 5, we do use all the 5 as well. Which are they? The first one, specifically these spaces that we work with, mid-caps, MSMEs, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. We tell them to stay focused on what you're good at. Not necessarily in the same sequence. I'm giving you my best 5, not in necessarily in sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stay focused on what you're good at. Be obsessed with customers. Whether you have 1 customer, whether you have 2 customers, whether you have 20 customers, be obsessed with the customers that you have. Finally, the customers will give you the revenue. Everybody else is part of the ecosystem. Your staff, your teams, your marketing and sales, your production, your manufacturing, your R&D. Everyone is there for us all to give the best of service to customers at affordable price points that they believe is the right one. And see the magic that unfolds. When you shift the focus to profits, when you shift the focus to performance, when you shift the metrics to other things, you find that customer goes out of your focus. I remember the joke long ago, I read 20 years ago, the time before mobiles, at least in India. The continuously calls on the landline to a company from a customer asking for some urgent help. And one of the customer service executives got upset. He went and took the phone off to cut it. And he was about to cut. The client got a line saying, I have a problem. He said, would you mind calling after 1 hour? We are right now discussing how to solve your problem. Might sound to be humorous, but that marked the beginning of the downfall of that company. In a way, what we call as the last straw that broke the camel's back. They were so obsessed about what they were, their processes and their own idiosyncrasies of how to do business. They forgot to hear to the customer who was actually following them. So point number 2, be obsessed with your customers. The third point is dive deep leadership model. It's something unfortunate, at least in this part of the world, the culture, not all, but many, is that I'm the boss, I'm the top leader. I will not get on and do the work. Nor will I listen. I will be picky. I will take what I need to. I'll tell you what to do. I may not listen. I won't listen. I won't know what the data is. I care a damn about the data, but things will have to happen. Just by paying people, just by whipping emotions, just by using the whip to punish people, things won't happen automatically. You need to dive deep, and when there is a problem, actually go in and show them what is to be done. These are the kind of leaders who have always succeeded, whether in sports or in politics or in business or religion or in any form of life. People who can actually get in and do it. If you don't know how to do, at least be there when the person is learning how to do from somebody else, so that the person knows at least you're taking the effort to actually teach them something, even though you don't have the core competency to teach. Point number 4, my favorite, of course, all 5 are my favorites, is to think deeply and slowly. I always believe that take your time to decide. Involve all the team members who are essential to ensure that there is a buy-in for this decision. But once decided, work like military. You can't jump into warfare and then think whether you are coming to the right way or not. Decide everything, even if it takes, if you look at many of the counter-terrorism options, sometimes they take 1, 2, 3 days to formulate a plan. That is to ensure that there are no mistakes. And when they move in, the work happens in less than, whether you take the 90 minutes Entebbe, the famous movie, or some of the counter-terrorism operations that happen in some of our own part of this world. The planning takes one week, 10 days sometimes, but the action happens in less than 1 hour's time. Precision strike based on slow, deep thinking. Point number 5, concluding point for my CCA with you. Leaders specifically, move away from know it all to become learn it all. In fact, when someone is offering you an input, if it really bothers you, if it really makes you angry, it's a very clear sign that he is sharing something that you are not comfortable with or you're not aware completely. That is the time for you to turn your listen it all. In fact, ideally 24/7, if you're on a listen it all mode, with humility, there is a lot that you can learn as a leader. If you really look at how we have structured the entire program, it's about 30 minutes roughly. So I have shared the basic detail that I wanted to. If there are questions or people want to post, let me just look at the chat box to find if there are any questions there. Yeah, I do see a few questions. Let me just pick up 1 or 2 from there. Yeah, I do have 1 or 2 questions. Will this event be helpful even to small businesses? Yes, of course. Each and every one of this learning is not something that these people necessarily developed or invented when they become big. These are the inputs, insights that they develop even to become what they have to become. Every one of the ideas, specifically the 5 CCAs that I've shared with you, are things that would obviously help, whether you are a solopreneur, whether you are a very, very, very small micro entrepreneur or a mid-cap organization or a listed company. The concepts are the same. The implementation might change here and there. The another question which have come up is, I'm keen on knowing about the backward approach of Amazon. Yes, that's one thing that I did explain in deep. The backward integration culture is also based on the 7 habits of highly effective people, begin with end in mind, of Stephen Covey. If you have a clearer picture, whenever you have built your home or gone on a holiday, I don't think you bought the bricks and cement and paint and started the work. You called an architect, gave him his the inputs that he would like to hear from you in terms of how you want your home to look, gave him the budgets and whatever, and then he gave you the plan, and then you went to an engineer, took an estimate. If you wanted some financial arrangements, you spoke to your bank or financial institutions, and then you started your work. The same is true for your holiday. 1 month from now, you want to go on holiday. You would plan everything in advance. Actually, you're working backwards. You are designing your experience and then working backward to fill all the necessary details for you to actually get your visualized experience into reality. Working backwards, the model of Amazon is an amazing model where every possible I is dotted and every T is crossed. And then you ensure that you make minimum mistakes. Of course, there'll be changes that you might have to do as you progress in the work. Let me also pick up if there are any other questions from other boxes. 1 second. People ask that, is this all that we have? I have given you the best of the business practices that have made some of these giants to grow from where they are to where they were to where they are today. It's up to you to make meaning of it. There are people like us who are always available. There are books, there are YouTube videos, there is the amount of knowledge that you have that you can pick up from the net. But I have done all that work for you. 15 days from now, in the next session, if you can look at the chat box below the video or in the event link, you'll find that the next event with the topic is listed there. It's going to be on Thursday, the 30th of September. I'm also planning a very big webinar on the 10th of October called as the Karma Sutras and Business Success. A very intriguing topic. To ensure that we coach the CEOs, the top leaders personally, I also run virtual programs called as Becoming a Spiritual CEO and Being a Spiritual CEO. In one of the boxes below, you'll find a link to one of the batches that I'm about to start in 2 to 3 weeks from now. This is one of the most sought after programs because I personally handle it. I coach and shape current leaders and future leaders, keep the batch size very small, give a lot of insights of close to 4 decades of the experience that I have and bring it to the table for them to benefit on a one-on-one relationship. It's not something that ends only in the session, it continues later also. The last 35, 40 minutes, it has been a wonderful journey of interacting with some of the best brains, some of the best leaders on this platform. If you're watching this recording at a later point of time, feel free to reach out to me, email to me, or contact me in the message comment section below the social handle in which you are watching this video. There is so much that we can help you with to make you grow faster, better, lean, mean, and fast. I'm out there to support you to ensure that you reach your dreams much faster. Thank you for being with me on this show till now. Till we meet again in the next show.